Hello friends, I am Sanket. Our today's topic is gestures in practical basis. Now in previous session we had discussed about the different types of gesture. So now let's try to implement it. So now here I am creating new actor project. Now here in this application I am creating a different types of gesture in single application. So now here I am using a tab application. So now just select the tab application. You have to also use a single view application. So now here my product name is, for example, here I'm using for example gesture part 1. So now here application name gesture 1, and now create it. So now here in this application I'm creating, means I'm using a tab gesture, a long press gesture, and the pan gesture. Okay, so now these three gestures are I'm using in one single view application. So now at the time I'm using a tab applications. So now let's design is and implement your gesture recognizer. So now go to your main.storyboard. So now here first, here I'm using a tab view, it means tab application. So now here you can use, there are the two view controllers are there. Now let's try to create for another view. So now I'm creating one as a view controller. So now for example here there are the three different screen according to my gesture. So now here for example I am removing all content from here. Now first I am using a different types of gesture using tab application. So I am creating one another objects. So now let's try to concatenate with your tab controller first. So now here using, it's a view controller. So now your three view controller has been connected with your tab bar controller. So now let's try to design first. So now here first I am changing my background color. So now I'm using this background property. Okay, now I am using same color of this different screen. Okay, so now here for example I am changing again your tab title. So now here I am using first as a tab gesture. So now second for the long press gesture, and third for the pan gesture. So now here I am creating a new application with a different screen. So now let's try with the tab gesture. So now how to use a tab gesture, how to implement. So now just go to in your control library. Now just simply search a tab gesture recognizer. Now at that time you have to use any gesture on your screen. Now simply just drag and drop on your screen. So now your gesture is from here, you can see that parts of the means top of the your view controller. Now again let's try to add your long press gesture also. Okay, so now long press. So now for this screen now I am implementing also the pan gesture. So now here I am using it's a pan gesture. Okay, so now I am creating application including a three different gesture. It's a tap, long press, and pan gesture. So now how to implement gesture. Okay, so now according to your view controller, so now here there are the three different view controllers are there. Now in the tab view controller there are the two view controller file is also there. Then after I'm creating one new file. So now let's create a new controller for this file. So I'm creating a new file, it's a Cocoa Touch class. So now make sure I'm using as a view controller. So now here I'm create one new class file, it's a pan view controller for the pan gesture screen. So now here according to your screen we have three different types of class are there. Now let's try to assign first. So now here I'm assigning the last as a pan view controller. Now then after Okay, whenever you use any gesture, your gesture recognize with action. So now let's try to implement first. Okay, according to your first screen. So now suppose the on the first screen, means first view controller, I am using as the tap gesture recognizer. So now simply just create the action with outlet. So now in future we have to also use the tap gesture property. So now here I am using as object, it's a tap gesture. Now on the long press screen, so now here I am also creating the action of the long press gesture. So now here I am creating one object as a long press using the outlet options. And for the pan gesture, so now pan gesture outlet, sorry, is action is created in the pan gesture controller. Now here I am creating again action with outlet. So now here I am creating the object of pan gesture. So now here I am creating the wall gesture actions with a particular class controller. Now again let's try to change the your tab icon as for the designing constraint. So now I am using as a system item, for example, like more, sorry, I am using as a like as the custom. Okay, just leave it because it's a different item and icon name are there. For example, here first is the tab gesture. So now here I am using the same icon for these all three controls, these all three files. Now let's try to implement our first tab gesture. So now in between whatever you want, means whenever you tap on your screen, at that time your gesture, tab gesture has been recognizer. For example, here I am implementing one print statement with tab gestures. Okay, so now here I am print a simple statement on console. So now this is a tab gesture. Okay, so now whenever you click, means whenever you tap on screen, at that time this gesture will be called, and on console part you have to see this statement, it's a this is a tab gesture. Now I am implementing the long press gesture. Okay, so now using long press gesture I am implementing alert. Okay, so now here I am creating one alert view. So now here for the method, here the title is long press, the message. So now this is long press gestures, and the style is I am implementing with alert. Now I am creating one button in alert. So now using UI alert action, and now the button title name is OK. Now style is I am using as a cancel, whatever you use as a nil. Now I am add your button in your alerts using add action. So now let's try to present your alert using your long press gesture. So now here animated always true and completion always nil. So now here I am implementing one simple alert in between your long press gesture action. So now in your second screen, whenever you press a between 0.5 second, at that time this code will be executed, means this alert will be executed. So now this is the long press gesture. Now let's try to implement the pan gesture. So now in between let's try to implement. So now here I am again creating one statement in between. So now this is the pan gesture. So now whenever you move any finger on your screen, it means on your third screen, whenever you move a finger, at that time this gesture, it means pan gesture, has been recognizer, and that it will be print on your console. This is the pan gesture. So now here I am creating one application in tab base, and in single application I am using a three different types of gesture: tab gesture, long press gesture, and pan gesture. And I am also implementing this gesture according to our requirement. So now here using a different class. Now let's try to check your applications and see the output. So run your application and check the output, the gestures are working or not. So now here in this application I am using three different types of gesture. It's a tap, second long press, and third one is pan gesture. So now let's see the output. Now your application is on the way. Now see, okay, so now this is the tap gesture. So now, okay, this is our first screen. So now you just click on screen. So now you can see, okay, your tap gesture has been worked. Okay, in any objects means on your screen axis, you have to click anywhere at that time this gesture has been worked. So now for the long press gesture, okay, so now I am pressed in between 0.5 seconds. So now at that time you can use your long press gesture has been called. Okay, so now this is the long press. Now pan gesture. So now here in pan gesture you have to move your cursor, it means your finger on your screen. Okay, so now that time you have to use the pan gesture. So now this is the tap gesture example, pan gesture example, and the swipe gesture example. Now let's try to implement in another way. So now I'm designing in a different label. So now I'm easily identify key this screen is for the tap gesture, and I am also creating a different label on your particular screen. So now here I'm using one label. So now for example this is the tap gesture. I'm creating one label in your second screen. So now here it's a long press gesture. So now here I'm using the long press, and I'm also creating one label on the pan gesture screen. So now here I'm creating one label on pan gesture. Okay, now for example I'm creating one label also on the tap gesture. Okay, so now I want the your click means your screen click on this label, means I want the value of tap. Okay, so now I'm using one label. So let's try to implement. So now here I'm creating the outlet of this label. So now here my label name is LBL counter. Okay, so now here let's implement in another way in your tap gesture. So now here I'm creating one variable in integer format. So now my counter value by default is 0. Then after I'm increasing the counter value in your tap gesture according to your tap gesture. Then after I will print this counter value on this label. So now here, okay, equals to cn, but here you can see the error because you have to print your counter. So now counter in integer format and your label has been supported as a string. So now let's try to convert your integer value into string. So now here I am using as a string into cn. Now let's try to implement again and check this output. So now here I want the screen tap, it means your touch value on this label. Okay, so now here I am using one label and one counter. So let's try to see the output. So now whenever you click on your screen, so now you can see, okay, your tap value has been recorded on your label. So now you have to also use this gesture as per your requirement. So now this is the tap gesture. Now this is a long press gesture. So now whenever you click, whenever you press on this screen, so now at that time I am implementing one alert view. And now this is the pan gesture. Now you have to also use the pen gesture using same fundamental concept. So now here I am using one variable, again it's a counter, and I'm designing one another label on your pen gesture screen. So now I want your pen, means your finger move counter on this label. So now here I am designing one label and I'm creating the outlet of this label. So now here LBL counter. Now I will print your finger movement value, okay, according to your counter on this label, okay, according to your pen gesture. So now simply your default counter value has been set as a 0, okay. Then after I will change the counter value +1 and then print on this label. So now here I am using this counter value, okay. So now I will print counter value on this label using your pen gesture. So now let's try to check again. So now run your application and see the output of the pen gesture. So now you have to use any gesture as per your requirement. Here I am implementing in simple way. So now just go to your pen gesture. Now just click and move your finger on your screen, okay. Now again just hold it. So now your value will be as a different way, like as I move your finger on your screen. So now your counter value has been increased and that value will print on your label parts. So now you can see this is the tap gesture. Now this is the tap gesture, this is the long press gesture, and this is the pen gesture. So now you have to use as per your requirements using a different types of gesture. So now here I am using, there are 3 different gesture in single application. So now it's a tap gesture, long press gesture, and this pen gesture. So now these are the gestures. Thank you.